Time now for another edition of Bases and Balls with Tribe broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus here on WAKR. Bases and Balls brought to you by our good friends at Jennings Heating and Cooling. And Rose, I wanted to start out talking first about our outfield and going forward. I mean, we're starting to get some decent play from Mercado. Myles Straw we get from Houston. We've seen Daniel Johnson. We've seen Bradley Zimmer. Harold Ramirez has been productive. Going forward, the rest of this season and into next year, seems like we have some nice choices brewing.
Yeah, and it's an interesting time, Ray, because let's face it, if you're Zimmer or Mercado, and maybe to a lesser extent Daniel Johnson, who's back in the minor leagues, this is a 2-month window where you are going to get an opportunity. Myles Straw is a center fielder. They didn't trade for him not to play him. And look, he was starting for the Houston Astros. So what a great addition that has been. I think he's really going to help. Right away, defensively, the outfield has upgraded considerably. And don't forget Harold Ramirez, too. I mean, he's been, I think, a good bat there. Sometimes defensively, it's a struggle, but he's in that mix, too. So, it's a great opportunity, and the Indians need to find out because they'll need to make some decisions by the end of the season, I think, on Zimmer and Mercado and Johnson, guys like that, to see if they are a part of the future. And if they're not, then take some steps to shore things up in the outfield. But I think of that group that we mentioned, they can come up with a pretty solid outfield. And I think we've already seen that at times since the trade deadline.
Has Zimmer, in your opinion, carved himself into a player with this team going forward? Because coming into the year, there were still a lot of questions what we were going to see from Bradley and such. You've seen every at bat, you've seen every inning. What's your opinion of Bradley Zimmer?
I think he still has to, he has to show well these last 2 months. If he doesn't, then I think they have to make a decision because at the end of the season, he's getting to that point in his career where arbitration comes into play and do you get tendered, non-tendered, all that kind of stuff on the business end at the end of the season. So, look, he can make the decision really easy by playing really well. And he's done that in flashes. It will be interesting to see how he handles a corner outfield position because as long as Straw is here, he would not play center field. So, that'll be interesting to see. I think it's still up in the air, but certainly some positives from Bradley Zimmer this season to be sure.
You mentioned going forward, and I wanted to be because Bobby Bradley to me has come up and has provided us with a nice power bat, some clutch hits, and of course we got J Ram at third base, but we got a guy by the name of Nolan Jones, who's looking to make his way up through the team. Where do you see on down the line him fitting in with this baseball team? He's got a lot of talent. I saw him here in Akron, love his swing. And again, I don't know how the year has gone for him in Columbus. I'm excited about his future. Where do you see him fitting in?
It's interesting, Ray. I think they're not too concerned with that until he beats the door down to get to the major leagues. And maybe a good example would be Owen Miller was on a tear at Columbus. So they got him up here. Do the Indians have a shortstop? Yes. So he wouldn't play short, but they figured out a way. He's played a little first. He's played a little second when he's come up here. And so they figured it out because his bat forced them to get him up here. And then now he's back after a tough stretch the first time around. Nolan Jones is not there yet. And I think until he is, then they don't really worry about it too much because it could be this September, it could be a year from now, it could be more than that. But his numbers at AAA haven't quite caught up with what he's done at the lower levels. And I know they don't just look at numbers, they look at a lot of different things, but I don't think they feel he's big league ready yet. Getting closer every day, but not yet. And who knows when that'll be. But I don't think they're too worried about where he'll play until the bat shows that he can play up here. What they are doing, though, is moving him around to some different positions down there, be it first or third, or even in the outfield at times.
DeMarlo Hale is now our interim manager for the rest of the year. And I thought maybe you could take a couple of minutes because a lot of Indian fans don't know much about DeMarlo because he just came to the team this year. as our bench coach, and now he's interim manager. Educate us a little bit on DeMarlo.
Tremendous background with several different teams, including with Terry Francona in Boston when Tito was over there. So they've known each other for a long time. He's been in a variety of positions in this game. And bench coach certainly has been one of them at a couple of different stops. And that's a great proving ground and area where you can really, I think, grow as a coach with the idea that you could be a manager down the road. I know there were certain points in time where he was considered for managerial positions that were open. Real positive, which I think is so important with a young ball club. Yeah, he's been with Tito a long time, so I think he knows what Tito would expect in certain situations, and that's helpful from a continuity standpoint. And I think when, last year when Sandy Alomar filled in for Tito, he said that was, the challenge is you want to be your own manager, which the Indians encourage. But you also, you're thinking about, well, how would Tito work it here in this spot, and what are players accustomed to? So there is that balance, and that's what DeMarlo is going through now. But I think that experience, having been on his staffs before, has been helpful.
Jim Rosenhaus with us, Bases and Balls, brought to you by Jennings Heating and Cooling. Rosie, you're not only our broadcaster, but I know you're a gigantic baseball fan as well. And I thought maybe we could close out the show this week by looking at the American League right now, which I think is really deep in talent this year. When you look at the East, there's 4 teams there battling. You look at our division that has the White Sox and us, and Detroit, I think, has made a nice step up this year. And then you go out west and you've got teams like Oakland and the Angels, and you've got the Houston Astros, who look like they're really a World Series contender. But give us your observation of the American League power structure right now.
Well, the Indians have seen everybody except the Red Sox. And obviously they've been a team that's been up there in the East. Really liked Houston, really liked Tampa Bay. Just Houston, they have a lot of answers in their lineup, and then their rotation seemed pretty good. Tampa Bay just loads up on pitching, more so in the bullpen. But a team that just has a knack for pulling out games late, which always can be a struggle. You mentioned out west, the Mariners all of a sudden have gotten in it. They're kind of like the Tigers, where I was reading a note the other day, Ray. I think in the last 40 games, the teams with the best record in the American League, Houston, Seattle, and Detroit, which you would never think that, and we'll get an eyeful this weekend with the Tigers. But so it really is interesting. The Indians have played the Blue Jays this week, and that's a really fun team, and I think a good team, but maybe on the outside looking in when it's all said and done. We'll see. But you're right, boy, there's not many series that you go into right now in the American League where you think, the Indians will take 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4, because those teams are really struggling and rebuilding. There are some of those, but there's a lot of really good teams right now in the American League.
Take our team out of the equation. Trade deadline was a week ago. What, in your opinion, was the biggest eye opener of those last couple of days of the trade deadline? What caught your eye the most, Rosie?
I thought the Cubs unloading everybody. That was, obviously there were big deals. Scherzer going out west to the Dodgers and all that. But when the Indians played the Cubs in a series this year, and when the team was out there in Chicago, the buzzword was, well, they probably can't keep Rizzo, Bryant, and Baez, those cornerstone guys from the World Series team and the playoff teams. But surely they wouldn't let all 3 go at the trade deadline. And that's what they did. So to me, that was one of the biggest surprises, that they took it right down to the studs, and they're starting over.
There you go. Bases and Balls with Tribe broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus. Takes time out of his schedule to join us each week here on WAKR. Rosie, we'll reconvene next week. Thanks for the time, my friend.
You got it ready.